Today on the BCP Show, we talk with Tiffany C. Wright. If your next level of growth isn't happening because of a money problem, then you may not have as big of a problem as you think you have. Tiffany says that businesses often miss out on getting needed funding because they don't have all the facts. All that and much more coming up. You're listening to the Blue Collar Proud Show, and you, my friends, are in Proud Nation.
It's the Blue Collar Proud Show, the show for business owners who are building businesses they can be proud of. Because having a strong business means a better life for you and your community. That's what it means to be blue collar proud. And now, here's your hosts, Carter Harkins and Taylor Hill.
Welcome back, Proud Nation, to another episode of the BCP Show, the Blue Collar Proud Show, the show that's all about having and living the blue collar business dream. If you can dream it, if you're out there with a dream, I have a dream. If you've got a dream and you want to build a business, the starting point happens right here on the Blue Collar Proud Show. Taylor and I want to be a part of that journey to your success by providing the education, the mentoring, and the encouragement that you need every step along the way. My name is Carter Harkins. With me every week here is Taylor Hill.
I am here.
We are excited to be a part of your journey. And really, we are being a part of a lot of people's journeys.
We are.
You mentioned it last week. Somebody said, you know what? We're breaking it down.
Yeah.
We're retooling our business, following the 10 principles that you've outlined in Blue Collar Proud in the book, because what we've been doing isn't working. I thought that was phenomenal.
Yeah, it blew me away. When I tell you who it is, I still haven't told you who it is.
No.
So I'll tell you who it is one of these days. You might even be surprised.
So, hearing that is great. We really do want to be a part of massive change in blue collar industries because we've worked with hundreds of them, and we know that we see areas where if just changing, even not massive change, but just changing a specific few things and keying off something different in your business is going to create really impactful changes that are going to give you more of what you want in your business.
Yeah, and somebody asked me, said 10 principles, that's a lot. And I said, well, you have to realize, yes, there are 10 basic principles here, but most companies actually hit 6 to 8 of them. So it's not that every company needs to change all 10. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and these are 10 areas of your business.
Yeah.
Every business has these 10, whether they know it or not. And really what we're just talking about is becoming better at these 10 things.
Sometimes even becoming aware that they're there. And that may sound funny, but we get so busy. I mean, I get tunnel vision. I get so busy doing one thing and taking care of, these 3 areas of my business because I know you're taking care of those, that I totally forget that, there's this other thing that's appendage out here that neither one of us really want to deal with. That somebody's got to go over there and get.
Keeping awareness.
So, So just being aware and making sure that you really do pay attention to those things. So,
starting there then, the book is available on Amazon.com. The 10 principles to build a kick-ass business that you love. That is the Blue Collar Proud way. At the end of the book, once you've read the whole book, we want to challenge you to take the Blue Collar Proud pledge. You can do that. There's a link in the book that'll take you to a web page, and then you're promising to build your business this specific way. We want you to take the Blue Collar Proud pledge with us and start growing your business that way. It's the way to take the blood, sweat, and tears that you're already pouring into your business and use that blood, sweat, and tears to generate a result, a business that you love, not a business that you hate. That's the ball and chain. That's the thing that's keeping you miserable and stuck and trapped. And, these are words that we hear business owners use all the time.
Oh, man. And I'll tell you what, I think the worst thing in the world that you can do, and, I'm not going to say where we were. I'll just say one of the guys made a comment that the guy that had owned the business like for 30 years is miserable. And it just shows everywhere.
And if you're miserable long enough, There's this psychological thing that happens when you start wanting to make other people miserable.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The business owner who hates so much what he does that he tries to make everybody else hate him or hate the business too. It's like he takes pleasure in other people's misery.
Well, I think this is kind of what's happening to this business. Is it's just going downhill and nobody knows how to stop it. And it started at the top. So to build something that 30 years down the road you're just going to hate, oh gosh, don't do that.
No, please.
Don't do that.
Okay, I've got a few announcements here, and then I want to read a review that we've gotten online. And but first, the announcement. So we are headed very shortly to Southeast HPBA, the Southeast Hearth Patio Barbecue Association annual convention, which is this year on St. Simon's Island, Florida. It's a beautiful place. In fact, one of my favorite barbecue places is there, right there on St. Simon's Island. We ate there last year, coming back from the Southeast HPBA. In fact, a little further south that time, near Tallahassee.
I know, and I'm pretty sure we're going to eat there again this year.
I'm hoping we will. It's a quick trip for us this time, in and out, but we are going to be there on June 9th. We have a class that we're presenting at 8 o'clock in the morning from 8 to 9:30. It's going to be a great class talking about some of the best practices for marketing, ways to get and keep your customers year after year after year. One of the biggest ways, but one of the biggest misses that we see in blue-collar businesses is they're so focused on getting customers and attracting customers that they've got this leaky bucket syndrome where new customers are just leaking out. And so we want to help them plug the bucket. We want to help them keep the customers they've already paid to get. So we're going to be talking about that strategy and some of the things that you can do in your business to help you retain your customers more. So that's St. Simon's Island, the Southeast HPBA, June 9th. Our class is from 8 to 9:30. If you're going to be there, make sure you come. We've got books that we're going to be signing and giving away. And you can also purchase them too. We've got a limited number that we're giving away. But so just come hang out with us. Introduce yourselves. Let's talk about your business and go from there.
It's all good.
All right. So now I've got a review I want to read. This is a review in iTunes. Keep them coming, guys. This is awesome. 2 weeks in a row that we've had reviews to share with you. This one's simple. I love it. This is the username is not pronounceable as a word. It's just Imbladum. I don't know if that's a last name. I'm not sure. If I'm getting it wrong, I apologize. But it's a 5-star review. And I really appreciate it. And the subject line just says, awesome. And the review only says it's 2 words. Go listen.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, short and sweet.
Yeah.
But thank you for that. I appreciate that review. It's a 5-star review. Anytime we get a 5-star review, we're sharing those online. Heck, we're sharing reviews that aren't 5 stars too. But I don't think there's been any, actually. We've got 17 reviews on there, and they're all 5 stars. And keep it coming. Guys, it makes my day when you share with us that we're providing something that's worthwhile to you to listen to. And we know how hard it is to leave a review. So for you to take the time and do that,
yes,
I want to share that review on the show and make sure that you know how much we appreciate you and how grateful we are to have you in our audience.
Yeah, and I'm going to second that because we really do. We so appreciate the fact that people are listening, and everywhere we've gone this year, man, we've had people come up. It's blown both of us away.
Yeah.
I mean, we've really been excited and blown away. I mean, I'll just tell you, I had a guy stop me in the hall, and just said, man, I never met this guy. I had no idea who he was. And he just said, hey, I just want to let you guys know, listen to your podcast every week. It's fantastic. It's like, okay, great.
It makes us want to step up our game.
Yeah,
it makes us want to do that much better at what we do for you to provide that value to you. So thank you for that review.
Thank you. We're very appreciative.
And if you'd like to leave a review, it's real easy to do in the iTunes Podcasts app. So if you own an iPhone, super simple. Just open up the Purple Podcasts app. It's already on your phone. I bet you didn't know it. If you're listening, it's a great way to subscribe as well. There's a subscribe button. All you have to do is open it up and do a search. There's a search bar there. Click it and enter Blue Collar Proud Show. Actually, just start typing it in and it'll pop up for you because we've had enough listeners now that iTunes is starting to show it when you start typing. So just start typing Blue Collar Proud Show. Find it, click it, open it up. It's going to show you some episodes, recent episodes at the top of the screen, but then right below it will be the Blue Collar Proud Show icon for the show. and it's a little bit bigger icon there. Click on that, and it's going to open up the full show you all of the episodes all the way back to the beginning. But then at the top, there's a reviews tab. Click the reviews tab, and you're in the right place to be able to leave a review. Also, while you're there, make sure you subscribe to the show. That way you get it every single week. When it comes out, you'll just automatically get it. It'll show you the little red 1 circle up there at the top. There's some other good podcasts as well. It's a great app to be able to subscribe to podcasts. So if you're not a podcast subscriber, we encourage you to go ahead and do that as well. But now we got to go to the front lines.
Fantastic. Let's go.
We take you now to the front lines in the ongoing battles of blue-collar business. Reporting from the trenches are the blue-collar proud advisors, coaches, and mentors leading the charge. Today's report comes from Jerry Eisenhower with CVC Coaching. It's good to have you with us here in the studio. Jerry, what are you seeing out there?
Man, what am I seeing? I am seeing the need for change all over the world. You know, and one of the key things is change requires pain. And it's up to you to decide just how much pain it's going to take for you to change, because that's what often happens. We don't change until we have faced pain. But what's happening around us is, and so much of this is driven by technology this day and time. What's happening, blue-collar people need to be aware of this. The consumer, the client, they are used to getting it now. This is the way it is. Taylor, I've heard you speak on the Power Moments on this, and this was an inspiration for me just recently hearing this. But the consumer wants it now, just like we want it now. When you go by a restaurant and the restaurant is backed up with people, you're going to have to wait to eat. Right now, I'm sitting in Nashville, Tennessee. Last night, I wanted Nashville hot chicken. Okay, that's one of the trademarks here. And I went somewhere and I figured, okay, I go in and I'm going to order my hot chicken. It took 25 minutes to cook that piece of chicken. Now, I'm in Nashville a lot. Am I going to go back there and get my hot chicken again? No, I'm not. It wasn't due to a line. It's because we cook it when you get here. But the same token, I'm sitting here last night. I've driven an hour and a half. I'm not into waiting. So as a blue-collar owner, you've got to understand this. Your customer wants it now. Used to, they would wait. It is ruining the newspaper industry. People don't wait for their news till it lands, and the newspaper industry is disappearing. So blue-collar business owners, be aware. The change is going to be painful, but if you're going to make your customer wait, you may not have a customer. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I think it's one of the hardest things to do is to change from a deal where you're booked out, 4, 5, 6 days, to get to a job because you can run your crews and keep them full and busy all the time. At what point do you start saying, okay, I got to add a truck, I got to add a technician, reduce our time from, 3 days down to 1 day, get it done the same day or next day. And, the additional cost of that, the additional holes in the schedule, all of those things have to be balanced. So, yeah, I do think it's going to be a painful change for a business to start bringing that in. Do I think it's necessary? Yes, for all the reasons you just mentioned.
Yeah, let's hit on one other. People buy books. We're all authors. We sell books. Now, do you realize that many people go to a bookstore today simply to shop, and in the store they place the order with Amazon? Why? It's easier than going through the checkout line. Yeah. So, guys, you got to be aware of this. Your customer is going to demand change. It's up to you if you're going to change to meet the customer's demand. And this is the bad thing about business. You got to adapt to the customer. The customer is not going to adapt to you.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. A lot of times guys will say, well, I've been doing this for 30 years, and my customers will wait for me. Well, if your customers are probably 50 and over, yes, that may be true because they're used to waiting. It's okay. But if you want to grow a business, if you want to get bigger, if you want to do the things that everybody says they want to do, even though they don't all do the things they need to do to get there, you've got to know that this generation from 50 down is, let me tell you, all those generations want the same thing. You're not a millennial. You're not a Gen Xer. You're a baby boomer, right?
That's right.
Yeah, so am I. Guess what? I wouldn't have waited. I mean, I probably wouldn't have waited. I'd have said, I'll get my hot chicken somewhere else. I mean, I'm notorious for going to a restaurant and there's a line out the door and I look at my wife and go, no, not doing this. Because I hate lines. I hate waiting. So, this is not necessarily generational. This is just our culture. This is a culture thing. So we just need to understand that we have to adapt to the culture of what's going on today. And I totally agree with you.
All right. Thanks, Jerry. That's good stuff. Where can people find you?
Hey, look us up on the web. We got 2 addresses, cbccoaching.com and jerryeisner.com.
Thank you, sir. We'll see you next time. You've got questions and we've got the answers here on the Check In with Reality segment. Taylor always brings us an article or a comment, something that he's been talking. In our business, you're the one who interfaces with clients more. I mean, You're our salesperson. You sell the marketing services that we offer through Spark Marketer. And so you have a lot of conversations with people, but you also get a chance to interface with clients too.
Yes,
and
I
so
do.
You talk with our clients, you talk with people out there, and you've got your pulse on reality.
Well,
finger on the pulse.
I've got my pulse on what most people think reality is. Let's put it that way. I think there's some fake news going around somewhere. No, I've been hearing about fake news. So.
Well, you brought me an article that I liked, and I always like to share the articles that you bring me. You're my biggest source of news. Did you know that?
That's scary.
If I'm living in a bubble, it's a Taylor bubble.
Uh-oh. Well, at least I'm not writing all the articles I'm sending to you. Yeah.
This one's good. It's by Eric Ravenscraft. It's on a website that we like a lot called Life Hacker. Figuring out how to hack life and get more of what you want out of life. I think it's a good site. But this particular article is called Emotional Intelligence, the Social Skills You Weren't Taught in School. It's good. We're going to put a link in the show notes. But tell me about emotional intelligence. We actually just listened to a book on tape or on Audible.
Which one of the reasons I sent it to you, because of the book and that, I thought it was really, really good. Because a lot of people, we don't think about emotional intelligence. We hire people for skill. We hire them. We look at their education. We kind of look through all that kind of stuff and think things that can be quantified on paper. Okay, we look at that, and then those people don't work out, and we don't know why. Google, I just recently read how Google totally changed their hiring practices.
Really?
Yeah, because of emotional intelligence. Because what they're finding is just because you're a valedictorian or salutatorian or whatever, I know that's the wrong word, but you've graduated the top in your class does not necessarily mean you have the skills to deal with people. And right now, that's one of the most sought after skill that companies are hiring for, is really the ability to deal with people. So emotional intelligence is very much about being able to, you would think it's all about reading other people, but it starts with you.
Yeah.
I mean, that really is, it starts with you. It starts with understanding why you feel the way you feel and are able to navigate that.
Self-awareness.
Yeah, it's the self-awareness and the ability to navigate around that self-awareness. So for an example, just personally, the only emotion I was allowed as a kid was really anger. So I grew up in everything.
That's how you got what you wanted.
That's how I got what I wanted, yeah. So everything I just got angry about. And, you get into the adult world, that didn't work real well. So you have to self-adjust, or you're just going to be end up an angry old white guy at one time. The reality here is I had to self-adjust. And that's really what we're talking about, is being aware and then saying, okay, where'd that come from? What are the triggers that trigger it? Why, it took me a while to figure out why that's how I dealt with things, but I realized I dealt with it because that's what was allowed for me to get my way.
Right.
That's when I got to be heard. So, and there are other ways to be heard. So that's just a personal experience. Mm-hmm. That doesn't say I have a high emotional intelligence, and I'm not trying to say I do or I don't. But it really does start with working on the inner core. And I think this is I'm going to say this. I think this is a big, big key in developing leadership skills.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Okay. Because, leadership is not a position. It is really about how you deal with people. And so having a high emotional intelligence, I think, is imperative to being a really, really good leader. Mm-hmm. So it starts with working on yourself, though.
Self-awareness first.
Yeah,
becoming
that's
aware
really huge.
of emotional, of emotions, both
Yes.
in you and in others. But then self-control comes next.
Yeah.
Right.
You gotta control
now
it.
that you're aware of it, now you have
to control it.
a better ability to control it. But that also takes skill.
Yes. And practice.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to practice.
And that's one of the things I thought is interesting about this discussion about emotional intelligence. IQ, right? Mm-hmm. That's something that many people say is just, it's kind of what you're born with. And you can work at increasing your intelligence, your book smarts, if you will. You can increase your knowledge, but that's even different than just intelligence. A lot of intelligence is sort of hardwired from the beginning. You got what you got. And there's not a whole lot you can do to increase that exponentially or increase that a lot over your life.
Right.
But emotional intelligence is a different thing, and it really is about skill, and it really can be developed. Mm-hmm. And that's good news.
Yes.
Right? Especially for us in blue-collar trades, because, it's a masculine world. We're told not, emotions don't matter. We're told that being emotional is wrong. Feeling emotions is wrong. Being aware of emotions, all of that. We don't spend a whole lot of time really building that. But yet, when you start becoming a business owner and a leader, it's absolutely necessary to develop better emotional intelligence. And you can.
You can. And once you have been able to, and I'm not going to say master it, but get good at it, with yourself. At that point, then you start seeing how other people react and are able to speak to others in a way and it's not manipulative. I want to be real clear about this. This is not manipulating people, but it's being able to see other people's triggers and to work within that so that you keep things at a level or a pace in your office. And it also allows you to help teach people as well. You want teachable. As a leader, you want teachable people because you want to build leaders. So you have to work with them to build their emotional intelligence. You've got to challenge them to be self-aware. You've got to challenge them to look at themselves in different ways and help them along and be able to be transparent in your own journey. I think all those kind of things are really, really important.
One of the things that we see going on and that we talk about in our book is that the new younger generation of workers coming into blue-collar trades, they are already more emotionally intelligent.
Yes.
Millennials in general, because of better education or education that focuses more heavily and emphasizes emotional intelligence more, means that they're coming into the workplace looking for leaders who are also emotionally intelligent. Mm-hmm. One of the laws of leadership, and you've said this many times, you can only lead to the level that you're currently at.
It's called the law of the lid.
So if you're emotionally unintelligent and you're hiring people who are more emotionally intelligent than you are, your ability to lead that person is pretty diminished. Mm-hmm. And when that person figures out that they're more emotionally intelligent than you are they going to stick around?
Probably not.
So the job of a leader in leading people who are already emotionally intelligent means that your requirement is you become more emotionally intelligent.
Yeah, and it's very doable. But you do have to, and here's the challenge, and I want to be real clear. Doable and easy are two different things, okay? It sounds easy. Oh, just get in touch with your emotions. Well, if you've been told your entire life that you need to bury those dang things, when they come up, it's not always pretty. And I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. Sometimes getting some counseling to be able to do some of this is necessary. And it's one of those things that, put your big pants on and your boots on and head on down and get some help, because these kinds of things are not native to us guys.
Especially older.
Oh, yeah. My age, you bet. You bet. It's just not something we were brought up. I was real fortunate because my mother was different in the fact that she had a lot of challenges in her family. And so my brother and I came up a little bit differently, and we have some advantages in that, even at our age.
Well, she was an educator.
Yeah, she was an educator, but she was well read. Went into counsel. Had counseling of our own, counseled many people. So we had the benefit of that.
Yeah.
So, with that said, though, I really feel that this is something that older men especially need to just get over.
Yeah.
You just don't be miserable.
Yeah.
I mean, why would anybody put their heels in just so they could be miserable the rest of their lives? But it's crazy. That's exactly what we do.
It's about getting more of what you want, right?
Yeah.
And this is how you do that.
Yeah.
This is how you get more of what you want out of your business, becoming more emotionally intelligent. It's not, we look at emotions as weakness sometimes as men.
And it's not.
It's not. It's actually a place of strength. Mm-hmm. And the world needs you to be strong. I mean, that is printed right there on the front of our book.
That's it.
The world needs you to be strong. And so sometimes that means, dealing with the emotions, learning, first of all, becoming aware, and then learning how to control those. That is one of the biggest keys, I think, to leading the next generation of employees that you've got to lead to grow your business, to get the dreams that you want.
I agree. Couldn't have said it better.
Good stuff, man. Thanks for sharing this article, Taylor.
You bet.
Our guest today is a serial entrepreneur. She formerly owned and operated a multi-state residential real estate investment firm and a commercial construction trade publication before starting the Resourceful CEO and focusing on helping small to mid-sized businesses eliminate the frustrations business owners and executive management teams encounter when transitioning from one stage to another. No matter what stage of business you find yourself in, it's always a good idea to start with the end in mind, with an eye toward growth and what you need to get there. And so I think today's conversation is going to be a great one for that. Proud Nation, please welcome to the show from Atlanta, Georgia, Tiffany Wright. Hi, Tiffany.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Thanks for being on the show. And this is going to be a really interesting conversation. You specialize in helping small to mid-sized businesses raise capital, figure out how they need to grow to take things where they want to go. Is that a fair assessment?
That is a fair assessment.
Tell us a little.
Summary.
Tell us a little bit about the companies that you've worked with and what that looks like in terms of raising capital.
Most of the companies that I've worked with have been in the $3 to $25 million range. Although there are outliers on both ends. The largest company I worked with was $78 million, and the smallest company that I worked with had about $300,000, but it was an IT company that was going to grow by acquiring other firms, and so I helped it. Kind of help them map out their strategy and begin the acquisition processes.
Gotcha.
But most people come to me. Well, actually, this isn't always the case, but many, I would say, the majority is 51%. So about 60% come to me because they're looking for money. And 40% come to me because they have cash, but they think they could do a better job of deploying the cash, or they want to step away from the business, sell the business, or retire, and they want to put systems and structure in place in order to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. When you start working with a company, obviously there may be doubt about whether or not money even needs to be raised. Maybe they're just trying to figure out how to take things to the next level. some of the people in the company may feel that money is the answer, others may not. How do you walk into that experience with that company and start the conversation about learning and finding out what's needed and how to do what the company wants to do?
I typically just ask a lot of questions, and I also look at the financials. I think the financials paint a picture and tell a story, but you need a lot of the information around it to be able to determine exactly what story it's telling. So it's kind of a puzzle that starts to take shape as you ask more questions. So I ask a lot of questions. I'll ask, what amount of money do you think you need? Why do you need the money? What do you intend to use the money for? Where do you see, is this short term or is this long term? How much money do you think you'll need? If you just need it now, how much money do you think you'll need in another year or 3 years or 5 years? Then, what's your budget like? What have you been doing? What's your cash flow structure like? Are you tracking your cash flow on a weekly basis? Who's involved? Who are the owners? Is it just the owners who are sitting there in front of me, or are there also investors or background owners like spouses are sometimes direct owners in the company, and sometimes they're not, but they act like owners. So you want to know that they're involved.
Right.
So it's important, if you're going to be making any strategic decisions, to determine in advance if they'll need to be involved. So those are the types of questions that I ask at the outset, and then based on the answers to those questions, that determines the other questions that I ask and the actions that I take.
So do you ever start working with a company and realize that a lot of the financials they just haven't been tracking and keeping up with, or doing the cash flow?
Yes. Oh, yes. I had a recent client. And I'm looking at first of all, they only did their income statement on an annual basis when the accountant prepared it. And it's a $3 million company.
Wow.
But they only prepare they only look at the income statement on an annual basis, which I strongly don't recommend. You should be looking at it on a monthly basis. So that was problem number one. Problem number two was they as I start to look at their contracts, I saw that a lot of the contracts, I'm going, wait, why is your revenue so thin? I'm looking at these receivables, but you don't really have a receivables problem, but, things are just thin. And then I looked at a couple of the contracts and saw that they appeared to be out of the money, meaning that they were losing money every time they delivered on the on the contract. And then as I ask more questions, I find out that some of the personnel they used are being paid for under the table and are not shown on the income statement. So they're losing even more money than I thought. And this I've seen a lot of. I had a client a few years ago who did the same thing, who paid a number of people off the books. So the money that he was losing on paper was actually significantly higher.
Right.
In actuality. So yes, these are the kinds of things that I see. People don't look at the numbers and they kind of fool themselves. And I come in, ask all these questions and drill down and say, this isn't making sense. And then they start admitting things behind closed doors. They won't admit it in front of their staff.
Sure. Well, we work with a lot of companies that are anywhere from in the thousands of dollars all the way up into the millions of dollars. And what I've seen is if you start good habits of tracking financials when you're small, that carries over when you get bigger. And, as you grow, and then when you need funding and you need to be able to get into, these types of things that you're talking about, all of a sudden the books are already there. So you don't have a lot of the issues.
That is so true. That is so true. It's just like if you, your own personal checking account, if you check you track your your purchases. For instance, I'm not good at the debit card, so I don't use it.
Right.
I forget to record that. I'm really good at tracking checks and any transfers in and out of my personal accounts. So I use my credit cards, which provide me with monthly or annual summaries of everything that I can download into Quicken and manage it. So I think it is definitely true. The way you manage your money from the beginning is the way it just makes it easier for you to build upon that and put in, find the proper, move from Excel to QuickBooks to another software, ERP, that's enterprise level software that matches your business as it grows. But it's easier to do that if you already have been tracking things. If you have to start tracking everything and then try to put in software as a salve, it doesn't work. The software is a tool to help you track. But if you're not tracking, if all your bills and stuff are all over the place in boxes, it's still going to be difficult no matter what kind of software you have.
Yeah. We always say systems work if you work the system. So
Right.
buying into a system and not using it is a surefire way to waste a lot of money.
Right, yes.
Well, Tiffany, tell me a little bit about, we've got a lot of folks here that are listening that have never, they're just growing their business to the point where it may make some sense to really go after some funding or, to bring in some level of financing, whether that's through bank or a line of credit, something like that. What are some of the biggest pitfalls that you see, first of all, that smaller businesses make when they first start thinking about these kinds of funding? And then what would you recommend to them as a good way to start that process?
Well, first, the biggest mistake that I see, actually, there's two. One is assuming that just because you have an account at a bank that they'll give you money. Mm-hmm. And even though you have no relationships with them, you just have an account there. And two is once you're turned down by one bank, or maybe two, but usually I find people have been turned down by one bank and they become very negative and say, I can't get funding. And then instead of saying, I'm looking for funding, but I'm having difficulty, do you know if there's anyone who could help me? They say, I can't get funding. And as soon as you say, I can't get funding, it shuts down your creative processes, and it also shuts down anyone who's going to help you. So for instance, I'm an angel investor, and if I'm sitting next to you at a business networking event and you tell me you can't get funding, and I'm thinking, well, I just wrote a book on getting funding. I could probably help you, but you just told me you can't get it. And what I have found is that when people say can't, they're very resistant. So I don't even try. I once had a half an hour conversation about how to help a plumbing company that was doing about $600,000. He was trying to grow to about $800,000, and he had been turned down by two banks. And we went back and forth, and I was saying, well, try this and try that. And he just kept shutting me down, but he never tried any of the things that I had said. But I felt like I was doing some kind of boxing and we were sparring, and he just kept blocking all of my approaches. So those are keeping an open mind and not assuming that just because you bank somewhere, you're going to get the money. Those are the two things that I would say. Obviously, I would have a lot more to say, but those are the two biggest things that I find.
That's interesting that that somebody just determined to not be someone that's qualified. They just decide. I think that's really interesting. There's people that say, whatever you speak is what's going to happen. So if you say you can't, then you can't.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I have found, I remember, years ago reading books about people who had to they had to persevere to achieve something. And I think it was about 10 or 12 years ago, I read about a developer in Dallas. It might have been longer than that, but it was before Dallas's downtown started to boom. And they actually approached 98 banks before they found one that not only said yes to their project, but was a good fit for them.
Yeah.
Now, that's what I call perseverance. So I am not saying that that's necessary, but obviously it's a very different approach, a very different perspective than someone who gets turned down after one or two banks and says, well, I can't get funding. Instead of saying, what am I doing wrong? How do I need to change my approach, or what kind of bank do I need to go after? Because, just the Bank of America's, Wells Fargo's of the world are very large, and their idea of a small business is 10 million and up.
Right.
Yeah.
So and for them to dedicate the resources to companies smaller than that, it's just not cost effective because they're so large. But larger regional banks like BB&T or small community banks that have 1 to 20 branches in your state or neighboring states are very focused on small businesses and are willing to lend money. And they do have people out in the community trying to build relationships with small business owners. And those VPs at those entities are the ones that you need to be approaching if you're looking for money to grow your business. And once you build a relationship with them, or as you initiate a relationship with them, if they're interested but they don't think you're ready, they'll let you know. And they know about alternative funding sources, at least the good ones do, like the receivables and factoring, or micro lenders and so on. And they can connect you with those if they think that in a year, or in 6 months or a year, you'd be a good candidate for them. So those are the kind of things that people should be doing, not saying, oh, I can only get 20,000 from Bank of America, or I can't get anything from Bank of America. Bank of America does a lot of micro SBA loans, the 50,000 or below. They just knock them out. But if you need more than that, they're generally not your answer unless you're larger.
It's my understanding too that the small local and regional banks have different charters, and I could be wrong on this, but I read something years ago that if you're in a certain area, it's very wise to go to the smaller banks in those areas, because they are regulated to actually lend within their charter. Is that?
This is true. All banks have charters which you specify you're going to do in your charter. So if you specify that you're lending. So large companies don't specify we're lending to a bunch of small businesses if you look at their charters. But a lot of smaller community banks were formed by a group of entrepreneurs, a group of business owners. And so they specifically put that into their charters.
Okay.
And because you have more small business owners on the boards of these banks, they have a higher risk tolerance because they understand the risks involved. So you may have people from a construction background, or from an IT company background, or different distribution companies, or whatever, who sit on the board. And so they would be more likely to fund your type of business. And so if you're having difficulty, it sometimes pays to look at the board of directors of the different banks smaller banks that you may be interested in. Typically, they're posted on the company's website, and you can see if it may be a good fit.
Tiffany, you've talked about traditional sources of funding and alternative sources of funding, and I'm sure that could almost be an entire episode just in itself. But I want you to talk to the business owner who is desperate for cash right now. And they're thinking, I've got to pursue some sort of funding. I don't know if I need traditional. I don't know if I need alternative sources. Where do I go? How long is this going to take? Because by the time something shakes loose, I could be in a lot of trouble. It could be too late even. So talk to that person. What can that business owner do if they're really strapped for cash and are just starting the process?
Okay. Now, before I say anything, and just like I wrote, I think it's very, very important to track your cash 3 months out, because the less time that you have to make a financing decision, the more desperate you are and the worse terms you will get if you do get it at all. So if you are aware of the need in advance, you can start the process in advance. You have more time to do your research, to establish or build relationships, and therefore you're in a much better position. I think that's with anything that we do. Sometimes opportunities just come from out of the blue, but when you're desperate, that typically doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. If you have a business and you have receivables and you're desperate for cash, one thing you could do is factoring, mm-hmm. or accounts receivable financing. Factoring is when you sell your receivables at a discount and you get money for those receivables up front. The problem is that if you typically with factoring, it's anywhere from 4 to 10% discount. And so that is essentially like a 4 to 10% interest rate. And if you're doing that on a monthly basis, 4% times 12 is 48% for the year, and 10% obviously is 120%, which is exorbitant. So it's good in a crunch, but what happens is people don't plan. They don't then start to plan out the money that they need in the future, and they're on this treadmill, and the companies typically end up failing when they're continually relying on factoring and don't have a plan to get out of it. Now, accounts receivable financing will lend against that, lend against your receivables. And if you have stronger credit and a stronger operating history, you can get a line of credit from a bank against your receivables. But if you don't, then there are entities out there, and they typically charge from 1 to 4%. So it's cheaper. And you don't have to sell all your receivables. Just you can sell as much or as little, mm-hmm. given that you meet the minimum on a monthly basis. So those are two ways to get money quickly in a pinch. There's, you can, if you have good personal credit, there's micro lending entities such as Axion, which is a large national one. But there's all kinds of micro lending entities that you can locate through your county economic development agencies. I think here in Georgia, at least when I was at Georgia Tech, there were about 60 of them. So I don't know if they're all still in existence now, but a number of them are. And these entities lend anywhere from $10,000 to $50,000. And the decision is typically made within a week, sometimes within just a few days. So those are a great way to get money in a pinch, as is the SBA Express loan, as I stated, which is $50,000 or less, typically $35,000 to $50,000. Things like crowdfunding and so on, these things take time. No one raises. I don't know of anyone who's just said, "Oh, I need money," and launched a crowdfunding campaign in a week and then raised the money that they wanted mm-hmm. in a week. Crowdfunding takes a lot of PR and marketing, social media engagement, and several weeks. So it's an option, but it typically isn't the best. There's websites like Prosper, which will allow you to, from which you can, or Lending Club, through which you can try to be funded by the masses, which looks more and more like private individuals or institutions that want to buy your loan. but it's available, and they typically fund anywhere from a few days to a couple of weeks. So that's another option. Equity typically takes longer unless you already have an investor identified, or you had someone who already invested in a company and you want to go back to them to ask them to make an additional investment. If you have equipment or other assets, you can, if you need equipment or other assets, you can obtain equipment financing either directly from the entity you're purchasing it from, or through an entity that specifically funds those types of purchases or finances those types of purchases. So those are just right off the top of my head, those are the different things that I would say to do, that I would go through if I needed money quickly. Yes,
Gotcha.
if I needed money quickly.
So you have written a book actually called The Funding is Out There. It's access the cash you need and to impact your business. Is this what a lot of what the book is about, is where to find those resources and how to be resourceful to find the funding you need?
Yes, it talks about cash, and then it talks about the different types that are available and when they make the most sense and how to access them. And it gives I think I give a little bit over 35 different case studies and examples of how it was done with former clients. So for instance, if you need $500,000, I had a client who needed $500,000, and we got the money from 3 different sources. She had a line of credit. She had a government contract coming on board. This is just an example. Coming online, and so she was going to grow from a little bit over 3 million to about 8 million over the next 3 years, and through that contract. But she couldn't. It was one of the large banks that she had a line of credit with, but they didn't feel comfortable jumping up so quickly. So what they did agree to do was to review her financials on a quarterly basis and do a step up on her line of credit. So they had a very low interest rate on the line of credit to her. So we looked at an outside line of credit financing entity, and they agreed to finance the government receivables off of this contract. Then we also had an entity that wanted to partner with her firm because they were about a $48 million firm, and they had a number of government contracts, but they had difficulty getting into the one agency that she was in. So they were hoping to fill the gap until she could fully ramp up to basically have her outsourced to them, and then the amount of business that she outsourced to them would decrease over the 3 years till it was 0. And so in exchange for that, they let her use their line of credit, and they gave her a very low rate. Actually, their rate to her was lower than the bank that she used. But anyways, it was so it was 3 different. Her funding came from 3 different sources, and that just tells you I like to use that as an example because one was a partnering relationship that resulted in funding, one was an alternative lending entity, and one was a traditional lending entity.
That's really creative. Definitely, I like how you think. You're looking for ways to solve problems through not just one type of funding or financing, but looking for different ways of getting it done. So I want to encourage people to check out the book. The Funding is Out There by Tiffany Wright. And Tiffany, I know people are going to want to connect with you too. And do you work with people individually and as part of the Resourceful CEO?
Yes. Well, I work with companies. Yes.
Okay. So tell us where they could find information about you.
At theresourcefulceo.com. Theresourcefulceo.com. If you do a Google search on Tiffany C. Wright,
okay,
you can also find a lot of information about me. I like to write, so I write a lot of articles that show up in different places.
Excellent.
But yes, so you can get me there. And if you want to write to me directly, typically I say go through the website, but you can contact me at twright at the Resourceful CEO and mention the Guys in Truck podcast.
Absolutely, which is now the Blue Collar Proud podcast. By the way.
Yes, I'm sorry.
No worries.
That's
no worries.
Right.
Well, Tiffany, you've been a great guest, and I love your laugh, by the way. I was wondering, we always like to end our show by asking our guest for a quote that has meant something to them in their own business journey of success. So I want to know, what is your quote, and tell us what it means to you.
If you keep having the same problem, it's not them, it's you. If you... I like that one because I've had a lot of business owners say, well, it's my employees. If they would and I'm thinking, well, it's all your employees. It's one thing if you have one or two problem employees, but if it's all your employees, it's not them, it's you. If you are alienating your customers, it's not them, it's you. If you're having difficulty getting financing, it's not them, it's you, or the way something is structured or whatever. So I just think that it's for me, it's been good because what it is instead of saying I can't do something, I just say I have to figure out what I'm doing wrong. And what better way for me to figure it out than to ask someone who is doing it right, and they can tell me. They can help me figure out what I'm doing wrong and how to change it.
Well, it puts the accountability right back on you, where now you can do something about it. You're not just a victim of things that are happening to you. You're a participant in the solution that gets you out of where you are.
Yes, that's absolutely right. That's absolutely right.
That's awesome. Good stuff. Tiffany Wright, thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
There's some good stuff. She's definitely thinking creatively.
Yeah, I like, you almost have to be creative these days in the financial world because it's just gotten so stiff.
Yeah.
I mean, I've told stories about my granddad who goes down, just had a relationship with a banker and go down and said, I need X amount of dollars because hail's coming and I just lost a crop, and they would give it to him, and he was good for it. And they knew he was good for it. They didn't have credit scores. They didn't have all this other stuff. It was really about relationships. So it's just a different world we live in today. So
it is. Well, so
got to have your finances together if you want funding too.
Yeah, and that's what that was my takeaway. Actually, was that there's a lot of different ways to skin a cat. If you're having trouble finding a funding solution from a single place, you may start looking for alternative solutions or combinations of different types, either just different ways of getting it done. But the overall thing is, yes, you can get creative with your funding, but you don't want to get creative with knowing what your real numbers are. Don't ever start playing with that side of the equation. You got to deal with reality. I know you agree with me.
Oh,
on that.
Yeah.
You got to know what your numbers are and have a handle on both your cash flow and just your overall financial health before you start introducing funding into the picture. You can get in trouble.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I mean, my takeaway really was there's funding available. It's out there. But you do have to make sure that your financials are together. It makes it a lot easier if you do. And I'm telling you, without saying anything, I've been involved in companies, working for companies that partnered with people and did some things, and the information that was given was not 100% on the up and up. And let me tell you, it causes all kinds of problems. So it's much better to just be transparent as you can. The real issue with most businesses, I think everybody tries to be transparent, but we want to look at, we think that things are better than they are, and so we create the books to where they reflect that they're better, and you have to be careful not to do that. Yeah. Creative accounting is not really.
There's a lot of creative accountants that are sitting in jail.
Yes,
you got to be careful.
Yes, exactly. So creative accounting is not really the answer here,
that's good.
But creative funding is different. Yes.
Right. All right, Proud Nation, the quickest way for you to take a new idea that you've heard and cement that in your brain, make it something that is real and actionable for you, is to share what you've just learned with other people. Once learned, or once taught, twice learned. I like that phrase. Mm-hmm. We want to hear what your big takeaway was from today's episode, so you can do that over in the Blue Collar Proud Nation Facebook group. Head over to Facebook and do a search for the Blue Collar Proud Nation. And ask to join the group if you're not already a member. And then look for the post that is the Tiffany Wright episode takeaways post there in the group. And click in the comments, read what other people found to be useful, their takeaways, and then add your own. Be a part of the voice of the community there and share what you've learned. And of course, as always, you can find all the other places that you can connect with us by simply going over to bcpshow.com/connect. That's it for this episode of the Blue Collar Proud Show. As always, Taylor and I want to thank you for listening. We also want to thank the people that make this episode happen every single week. Aaron Blaze, our technical director, Jessica Wynn, our show coordinator, Jonathan Sanders and Karen Hatcher, our social media managers. Until next time, remember, it takes the same energy to build a business you hate as it does to build one you're proud of. So why not build it the Blue Collar Proud way? We'll see you next time, right here.
The Blue Collar Proud Show is a production of the Blue Collar Proud Network.